Welcome back, folks. So today we're diving deep into the latest twist in the DA Fani Willis disqualification case, where tensions are high and allegations are flying. So Fulton County Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade, he finds himself under scrutiny as new revelations surface regarding his relationship with District Attorney Fani Willis. Trump's legal team has dropped a bombshell, citing evidence of Wade's frequent visits to Willis's neighborhood prior to his involvement in Trump's criminal case, challenging the timeline that the pair presented in court. With over 2,000 phone calls and nearly 12,000 texts exchanged between them, questions about potential conflicts of interest are looming large. And that's not all, guys. Whistleblowers from the Fulton County DA's office have stepped forward, alleging misuse of funds by Willis, further complicating matters. Stick around as we dissect the latest developments and their implications on the case. Is this all going to mean a Trump win in November? Stay tuned to find out. So here's the latest on Fani Willis's disqualification case. Check this out.
And former President Trump's legal team says cell phone data shows the Fulton County DA is lying about the timing of her affair with the special prosecutor. Their affair has been under the microscope, with Trump and his co-defendants arguing it created a conflict of interest in the Georgia election interference case. A judge is expected to decide soon whether to disqualify DA Fani Willis. And according to a new court filing, the relationship may have begun months earlier than Willis and Nathan Wade claim. On the stand, Willis angrily denied any wrongdoing that would merit being taken off the case.
You've been intrusive into people's personal lives. You're confused. You think I'm on trial. I'm not a hostile witness. I very much want to be. We have defined personal as romantic. It is an inaccurate way to state the question.
Then I will certainly restate it so it is very accurate.
Okay, and please do not yell at me.
Funny how she says not to yell at her, but many say that she was the one yelling, berating, and generally storming the courtroom. Hence, people are saying that Fani Willis is totally unfit for the DA office and certainly not fit to lead the prosecution team against former President Donald Trump. Those latest cell records uncovered by Trump's legal team also bring a new twist to the legal story, as it brings into question what DA Willis said about the timeline of her relationship with the special prosecutor Nathan Wade. But first, just to kind of catch everybody up real quick, the relationship between Wade and Willis threatens to derail the Fulton County District Attorney's election interference case against Donald Trump after one of his co-defendants went public with the allegations earlier this year. So Trump and his co-defendants argue Willis financially benefited by hiring Wade, alleging he used his earnings, more than $650,000 they say, to pay for vacations for the two. Wade and Willis have since admitted to the relationship, but said that it began after he was hired, and they claim that they split travel expenses for the trip together, with Willis paying him back in cash. They also argue that there were no legal violations that would merit her disqualification for the case. Willis's office charged Trump and 18 others with racketeering in August, alleging they engaged in a wide-ranging scheme to subvert the results of the 2020 presidential election in the state. Trump is charged with 12 additional felonies in the case, including solicitation of violation of oath by a public officer and conspiracy to commit forgery. Now, if Willis is disqualified due to a conflict of interest, the case could face serious delays as a statewide panel of prosecutors decides how to handle it. And if defense attorneys can prove Willis and Wade lied under oath about their relationship or when their relationship started, it could qualify as perjury. So all of these problems could potentially delay Trump's case to past November, and by then he may already be reelected as president of the United States. But that's something that we're going to talk about more later in this video. But first, let's go and go through the latest evidence that calls into question what DA Willis and Wade said about their relationship timeline. So according to the cell records that are new evidence, Wade regularly visited District Attorney Fani Willis's neighborhood before she hired him to work on former President Donald Trump's criminal case, contradicting the relationship timeline that Wade and Willis described and testified to under oath in court, as they argue against conflict of interest allegations threatening to disqualify Willis from the case. So Trump's team hired a private investigator who looked into AT&T records that linked Wade's phone to the cell tower closest to Willis's condo. And it turns out Wade visited the area surrounding Willis's condo near Atlanta at least 35 times between January and November 2021, when he was hired to work on the Trump case. The investigator also reported that Willis and Wade also had over 2,000 phone calls and exchanged just under 12,000 texts over the 11-month period before Wade was hired for the Trump case. His first high-profile case of this caliber, by the way. Overall, the findings dispute Wade's and Willis's claims that their relationship began in 2022 and their testimonies estimating that he visited her condo no more than 10 times before he was hired in late 2021. Now, if they lied this much to the judge, imagine what they may have said to the grand jury in the Trump trial. I mean, it's hard to see people in power abusing their power, you know? So I do hope that we get a fair hearing from all of this. Another piece of information that I found interesting is the testimony from Robin Yeardy, a former Fulton County District Attorney's Office employee who described herself as a former close friend of Willis. She testified that Wade and Willis lied about their relationship timeline, claiming it began shortly after an October 2019 judicial conference. Now, what's especially interesting to me is that Willis later testified that she no longer considers herself friends with Yeardy, who, by the way, appeared to leave the DA's office on bad terms. That last part about the DA's office and bad terms definitely rang a bell with me, as I remember how whistleblowers from the Fani Willis's own office seems to be lining up to testify against her in the state's Senate's own investigation into allegations of misconduct by the Fulton County District Attorney. Republican State Senator Bill Cosworth, he opened the meeting of the State Senate Special Committee on Investigations with that bombshell revelation that multiple whistleblowers from the Fulton County DA's office had come forward to testify against her boss. He said they allege Willis misused state and federal funds. Trump and attorneys for several of his co-defendants have now said Willis should be disqualified over the allegations and all charges against them dismissed. So what do you guys think? Should DA Fani Willis be disqualified from the Trump case? So let me know your thoughts. And hey guys, we're just getting started here. So sit tight because we're going to be talking about how exactly Trump's team got those phone records. Pretty high-tech stuff. And of course, what this could all mean for Trump come November elections. So first, just a quick thank you for you guys for always watching and a big thanks for always lighting up the like button. I totally appreciate that. All right, so here's how they track the cell phones. Pretty interesting if you ask me. Also good to know that they can track our cell phones just like this. So the filing explained that a phone doesn't have to make calls or even send texts to be located. When a phone is switched on, it's repeatedly sending pings to the nearest cell phone tower, revealing where the phone is at any point in time. So yeah, watch out guys. They know where you're at. Now for the Fani Willis Nathan Wade case, the data showed that in 2021, Wade arrived at Willis's home late at night twice and left in the morning hours, once in September and the other time in November. Sounds like a sleepover to me. The September trip allegedly showed Wade staying at Willis's home on Dogwood Court in Hateville, Georgia until after 3 a.m. and then texting her when he returned to his home in East Cobb, which I have to add is a pretty upscale neighborhood in northern Atlanta. In November 2021, Wade is alleged to have received a call from Willis and he then started driving to her home while still talking to her on the phone. Now, on that occasion, he allegedly stayed at her home until nearly 5 a.m. And as Trump's lawyer points out, nobody knows what was happening in the house between midnight and 3:28 a.m. on September 12th or between midnight and 5 a.m. on November 30th. Only two people know, and they should testify and say exactly what was happening on those occasions so no one will complain about improper speculation or improper efforts to distort the truth or any kind of nefarious contacts with the media. Now, like I said, pretty high-tech stuff here, guys. But more importantly, it definitely raises a lot of questions about the relationship timeline that's coming from the Willis camp. Now, what's next? Well, 6 weeks of explosive allegations and 2 days of bombshell testimony. A Georgia judge is now weighing whether or not to disqualify DA Willis and possibly her entire office in the election fraud case against former President Donald Trump and 14 others who allegedly conspired to overthrow the 2020 presidential election that Trump lost in the state. What Fulton County Superior Judge Scott McAfee decides and when could ultimately affect not only the outcome of a major criminal case against Trump, but also whether the case proceeds before the presidential election in November when Trump is expected to face off against President Joe Biden. But the real bottom line, according to legal experts, is that while Willis is very unlikely to be disqualified based on a strict interpretation of Georgia law, the time spent on hearing evidence about her affair with Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade threatens to push the actual election fraud trial back to either right before or right after Election Day. Now, if McAfee does disqualify Willis and her office, a little-known state agency called the Prosecuting Attorneys Council for Georgia would be the oversight body that would decide what happens next. In another case, also coincidentally involving Willis, the Prosecuting Attorneys Council has had since July 2022 to appoint someone else to take over the case, and it has yet to do so. As a result, many legal experts say a disqualification would likely delay the Trump case significantly and push the trial past the November election. If McAfee rules sometime in March against the motion to disqualify, as legal experts predict, then Willis is likely to double down on her efforts to get an August trial date for the case. Trump's lawyer, Sado, has argued that there's little time to try the former president before the 2024 election, and that the Republican frontrunner couldn't be tried after then if he wins. See, this case against Trump isn't like those federal prosecutions you've been hearing about, where he's accused of messing with the election and holding on to classified documents after his time in office. Those charges, he could squash pretty easily if he gets back in the Oval Office. But this one, we're dealing with a state-level situation here. Experts are saying that if Trump were still president, trying him in Georgia would be very difficult, if not impossible, because he would still be able to apply enormous political pressure to those trying to put him on trial. Now, another option for Willis is voluntarily stepping down, even if the judge rules against disqualification. Some legal experts have argued that Willis or Wade should step down to avoid plaguing the case with politics and distractions. As one former Republican White House ethics lawyer said, the best interest of Georgia and the nation is that she step aside and allow other lawyers in the DA office to prosecute, especially as there's just too much at stake to do otherwise. The next date that we're watching, guys, is March 1st. That's when the judge scheduled a hearing date for closing arguments on the motion to disqualify Willis. McAfee has also said he would bring all parties in for a private in-camera meeting to discuss whether to allow into evidence alleged statements from Wade's former divorce lawyer, Terrence Bradley. Now, apparently, Bradley has said Willis's affair with Wade actually began long before she hired him as special prosecutor in November 2021. Wade is trying to prevent Bradley from giving information obtained through representing him in his divorce proceedings, arguing that it would violate attorney-client privilege. After McAfee hears those arguments from the defense and the DA's office, legal experts say he could rule at any time, and they say he's usually quite fast with turning orders around, and he'll probably want to be particularly careful with this decision. So yeah, if there's ever a time to tune in, guys, this will be it. Make sure you're always subscribed to the channel and have that notification bell on. I'll be sure to see you guys on the next one. Till then, take care.